Would you be surprised to know that there is another way besides the 4% rule to withdraw money from a retirement account when you are retired that may give you more money each year to spend and actually may provide more money at the end of life? What is this method? Stay with me as a financial professional. I'll explain what it is. First things first, I have a newsletter. The information on how to sign up for the newsletter will be in the description box. Please do sign up. There's a lot of information I send out in the newsletter that isn't talked about here on this channel. Let's get into it. What is this magical method that's not the 4% rule that some people use to make withdrawals from their retirement account that gives them more money, more stability, and leaves them with more money at the end of life? So I'm very surprised in the retirement community here on YouTube. I don't hear about this methodology very often. And I don't think we hear about it very often here on YouTube because it does require a fair bit of work. And I want to give, before I start, the caveat that this method that I'm going to talk about really needs to be done in conjunction with the financial professional. I would never recommend an individual alone uses this method. Talk to a certified financial planner or an accountant or a financial advisor before you decide you're going to use this method because it is less straightforward and more difficult to manage than the 4% rule. So the method that I'm talking about is the dynamic method of withdrawals. And essentially, the dynamic method takes a look at annual performance on a retirement account and makes withdrawal decisions based on that annual performance. Now, there are other considerations that have to be taken into factor, things like inflation, taxes, etc. But long story short of it, let's say you have a portfolio that has a really great year and it returns 15%. And instead of just taking out 4%, you decide after taking into account taxes and inflation and other consideration, you're going to take out 9%. So it's a way to withdraw money that few people in the public know about, but financial advisors often know about it. But I think it's not widely spoken about here on the YouTube community simply because it does require a degree of professional management to pull off. And maybe for the DIY community or for folks that really want to do it themselves, that it wouldn't be appropriate. There are a few other caveats with the dynamic method that I am going to go through. This may be a 2 video series, but I'm going to show you how it works and I'm going to show you the difference that it can make in retirement. And I also want to say this is not professional financial advice. I don't want this video to be considered financial advice. I want it to be considered educational and food for thought. And if you're interested in learning more about the dynamic method, I'm sure that there are videos on YouTube, but you really should speak to a financial professional like a certified financial planner, a CFP, to make sure that this method is right for you and that it is employed correctly. So let's switch over to my desktop. So I'm at my computer screen and I'm going to run through some numbers to show you the difference between the 4% rule and dynamic retirement withdrawals. And I learned about dynamic retirement withdrawals and how this process works when I was getting my CPWA. So I've been in the profession for many years. I had a CFP for many years. I had done countless retirement plans. And when I learned about dynamic withdrawals, I was at a pretty high level certification program. And I was like, oh, this makes sense. This is actually something that can work for a lot of Americans. So it's not something that I feel is widely taught, even at the CFP level. It's something you have to learn at a pretty high level or after doing retirement planning for a long time. Most financial advisors and certified financial planners use software. And in my corporate role, I use eMoney. And eMoney is great. It's very sophisticated and very robust. But eMoney doesn't necessarily use the 4% rule and it doesn't necessarily use dynamic withdrawals either. It uses another method to calculate out withdrawals. And essentially, when I'm building out a case in eMoney, I go in and put all the client's information, how much money they save for retirement, how much they will save in the coming years, how much money they want to take out, when they want to retire, et cetera. And the eMoney system will tell me if this person can do this or not. And if the person cannot do this, then we have to go back and change variables. Maybe the person has to work longer. They have to put more money in for retirement. We have to move money around or something. This concept of dynamic withdrawals can be used by an individual, but once again, I would say it needs to be used in conjunction with a certified financial planner or an accountant because it is more sophisticated than 4%. Why do we use 4% if it's not best? Even the creator of the 4% rule has since come out recently and said the 4% rule isn't accurate. And as a financial advisor, I've always known that. More like 4.5 to 5%. If you retire early, it can be as low as 3%. If you have other factors in place, it may be 3.5%. 4% across the board, I think it's used because it's easy. I think it's used because it's easy to calculate out, it's easy to do, it's easy to keep up with. And what I've noticed is with people who do follow the 4% rule, they almost invariably end up dying with more money than they started off with. For someone who is very high net worth or moderately high net worth, they have 2 million, they'll end up dying with 5 million. And in my opinion, that's a miss to die with 5 million because this is money they could have used earlier in their lives or earlier in their retirement to build memories, to have great experiences. Now they're 95 sitting on $5 million. And basically at this point, the nursing home is getting it, or maybe the next generation will get it. And if it's in a taxable account, it doesn't really help them out that much. So I wanted to actually run through the numbers to show you how powerful dynamic withdrawals potentially could be. We're going to take a look at a person. This person is starting off with 300,000 in a 401k account, which isn't too far off the mark. The average American has about 276,000 sitting in a 401k account. The 4% rule is just going to be 4%. This person is going to retire at age 65 and is going to live until 95. So they're going to have a very long life. I also gave them an 80-20 portfolio, and this is based on real historical values dating back to 2003. The S&P 500, and I believe I can't remember what bond index is used in this, but it's a stock and bond index. And we're going to set this into motion with the 4% rule and see how much money the person has to spend each and every year, and also see how much money this person has at the end of their lives. So let's take a look at the 4% person. Okay. All right. So starting off at 65, let's say fast forward a full year at the end of the year, because the market on an 80-20 portfolio returned about 21%. It was a really good year. If they take out 4%, they have about $14,000 for that year. Now, the person, let's say the person also has the average Social Security of about $2,000 a month, $24,000 a year plus $14,000. That's what, about $38,000 in a year. So the next year, the market returned about 8%. The person has about 378,000 and they take out about 15,000 and they're taking out their 4%. So you can already see what's happening here. The balance is getting bigger and bigger and bigger based on the average Social Security being $2,000 a month and $14,000 or $15,000 a year. This may not be sufficient for a single person because you're coming in at an income under 40,000. And maybe someone somewhere can make an income of $40,000 a year work in America. But I think by now, most Americans would agree for a single person, $40,000 in most areas of America would not be feasible. So basically, this person is eking along and squeaking it out. This is equivalent to, I believe, 2008 when the market had a severe drop. So this person is probably sweating bullets, and they only take out $10,000 that year. They're really cutting it slim. And then the market comes back, and over time, they're able to take out more money and more money. And guess what? At 95, this person dies with about $750,000, about $750,000. Now, this person clearly didn't run out of money. Hallelujah for that. But the 750,000 over a 30-year period of time has about half the purchasing power of this. So in theory, this person ran a marathon to stay in place because 750,000, it has the equivalent purchasing power of about $375,000. But they played it pretty safe. And fortunately, as the balance of the account grew, they were able to take out more money. And this is basically accounting for inflation. But they lived a pretty meager lifestyle in retirement and they cut it pretty close. This could be considered a successful retirement. This person did not die with zero. They have a bit of a nest egg in case something goes wrong towards the end of life. But this person probably lived a diminished life over what they could have lived under most circumstances. And this is a major problem with the 4% rule. Most people don't have that much in a 401k. The average 401k has about 300,000. 4% of 300,000 is $12,000, $1,000 a month. And if it's in a taxable 401k, once you take taxes and everything out of that and combine that with Social Security, it just will not be enough. Okay, so let's take a look now at the dynamic situation. We're going to start off with the same person. They have 300,000. We're going to ignore this 4% rule. They live from 65 to age 95. They have an 80-20 portfolio split, the same returns here. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Okay, and the numbers are very different. So year one, okay, there's a 21.68 return on the market. Because there's a 21% return on market, we're going to take a 10% withdrawal from the portfolio. So I take out, instead of taking out 14,600, I take out 36,500. Okay. Now that 36,500 plus that 24,000 out of Social Security, that gives me about $60,000 to live on. The average salary in America is about $60,000 a year. You can do something with $60,000 a year in retirement. You can live a pretty comfortable retirement. If you're on your P's and Q's and you're watching your money, you can live a pretty comfortable retirement. Okay, go forward 1 year. The market returns about 8%. This person takes out 4% of their money in retirement. So this person has $15,624 and the portfolio value is $390,000. Okay. Now, this is a problem here. You went from 36,000 to 15,000 over the course of 1 year. So you went from maybe 60,000 in your annual spending down to 40,000. Okay. Let's roll forward 1 year. So in this year, the market returned on average about 2.64%. I'm going to say this person takes zero because the amount just wasn't enough for them to be able to take a withdrawal on. So this person is just living on Social Security, $24,000. But the next year, the market returns almost 12%. They take a 5% rate of return. They take out $22,000. Their balance is $447,000. So I'm not going to go through year by year because this is quite tedious to go through year by year, but you see basically how this is working. The person is making a decision of what to withdraw from the account based on the performance of the account for that year. If the account doesn't perform anything or performs very low, that person doesn't take anything out of the account. The advantage this has is that it gives the portfolio time to recover. The worst time to take money out of the portfolio when it is down or when it has near zero performance. You don't want to touch the money in those years. The best time to take money out of the portfolio, in my opinion, is when the portfolio is returning 21%. So the question is, and if you look at this over a 30-year period of time until this person turns 95, there's about 10 or 11 years where this person can take out nothing because either there's a negative return or there's very low returns in the account. What is this person doing in these years with zero? I'll tell you what this person is doing. This person has access to other accounts. This person has access to cash. This person has access to real estate. This person has access to a pension, or this person has access to other forms of income where they're not sweating it out that they can't take money in a certain year. Or they took this year where they had 36,000 and they put some of it in the savings account because they knew there would be a rainy day. Essentially, another reason why I don't think the dynamic method is as popular on social media. Typically, people who use a more dynamic method of retirement withdrawals are wealthier. They have other accounts. This is but one of 5 accounts that they're pulling from. And in a year like 2008, they don't touch this account. They go to their money market account, or they go to their real estate, or they go to their pension. They go to another source of income that they have that can make up the shortfall. It's really hard to tell the average American to do the dynamic method because they're going to love you in year 1. This is looking mighty good. They're going to hate you in year 3 when they can't take anything out. And they're going to hate you again in year 5 and 6 when they can't take anything out. This works for a segment of the population, and it typically works for a well-heeled segment of the population. But this person gets a chance to enjoy their money while they are younger, right? They're taking out $36,000 here, 22,000, 38,000, 25,000 versus the diminished amount that they're taking out here. They get to enjoy this money in real time. And the real surprising thing is, boom, look how much money this person has at the end of life. This person has about 2.2 million versus 750,000 in the other scenario. So typically people who use a dynamic withdrawal method typically get more money during each year, but also have more money at the end of life. Yeah, and it's a pretty significant difference here, 2 million. Why is it 2 million? Because I'm not touching the portfolio in years like 2008. I'm letting the portfolio set and I'm letting the portfolio rebuild. And I'm also not withdrawing. If you notice in terms of withdrawal, I'm not withdrawing up to the hilt. This had a 21% rate of return. I'm not going in and taking 21%. I'm not moving north of 10% on any given year. Like in a sterling year, I may take out 10%, but I'm not there. At no point do I go in and take out 20% or 15%. So there are parameters on the dynamic method, but it allows you to take out a lot more money than 4%. But the drawback on it is that some years you can't take out anything, and it may be multiple years. There's 2 years here where I didn't take out anything. You have to figure out where that money is coming from besides this portfolio. And you won't know until the end of the year how much money you can take out. That's also another issue with this. Here, it's like January 1st, you can take out your 4%. Here, I won't know until the very end of the year what the performance is. Pretty much you're taking your money out in December. That's another kind of argument that the dynamic method is more for well-heeled people. They typically wait until the end of the year to take out the money. They'll take it out on December 31st and use that money for the next year. But that just may not work for certain people. I have had people who use kind of a combination of 4% dynamic. The combination method is maybe that's a whole other video. I'll get into it. I won't get into it here. If you want to see the combination method, let me know. But this video is not long enough, and I wanted to show you something new and different by revealing the dynamic method. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you like and what you don't like. And if you found this video useful, please share and subscribe. Thank you.